Oh yeah, Subone here. Wanted to do something a little different. I had a follower ask if I would look at a piece of video and look at a kill basically, and give my thoughts on whether I thought it was cheating or not. And so I went through the clip and identified some things that probably indicated that it was likely not. But I promised I would kind of go through it and look at it filtered, not just on the phone, which is where I was looking at it, but actually wanted to put it through my gaming PC, put it through the audio setup that I have, and just kind of get an idea of what the other player would experience. So I'm going to run the segment a couple of times. The first is just going to be it's just the raw audio. It's not going through any filters, and then we'll turn different filters on and just um, kind of do two things. One is examine what the player that we're watching might have heard while they play, as well as look at the clip and kind of break it down a little bit. So kind of trying to do two things at once. Talk about audio, but also talk about this play itself and break it down. And the thing that I want to point out is that Warzone does move very quickly, and so if you are an average player or above average player, you can watch a clip in real time, and a lot of times it's difficult to break down what happens. It's difficult to actually know what went on in that clip, and so we kind of get these situations where sometimes it feels like stuff is going on that shouldn't be going on, and the reality is, um, it's actually kind of okay, right? It's not necessarily cheating. It's even though it might feel that way when you actually break it down and you look at it, um, there's cues and things going on that can give information that we in real time don't always see. And so I want to look at some of those elements and kind of talk about that as much as I am talking about the audio and some of the other aspects, because I think this is one of the big problems with the reporting system that we have is that it's an instantaneous. You only have a few seconds, especially in like a resurgence game where you might be coming back very quickly after dying. So your chance to review the film, right, to see what happened, despite the fact let's not talk about how the replays are not great. They're not always the best, but your chance to make a decision, it's a split decision. And a lot of times, especially if you're in the middle of a game, if you're ticked off, if you're frustrated, right, it could, we are going to overlook things. And I think the problem with the reporting system that we have, aside from the instant shadow bans that crop up from time to time, I think the problem that we have is that there's no chance to review it, right? Like, I would love to see a system where it's kind of like you think something sus and you file a report, and then like the next day or a couple hours later, you get an email, right, with a link to review the gameplay footage, right, and you can, something like this would be like a theater mode, would be perfect, right, like where you could actually see kind of a bigger picture of that moment and see what happened, and then decide whether or not it was reportable or not. And I think something like that would add a lot more credibility to reports, because I feel like a lot of us, we have something happen to us, we get ticked off, we're frustrated, we don't feel like it's fair, and so we punch the report button, and the reality is, maybe we clipped it and we go back and look at the clip later, and it's like, I missed something, right? Or you look at the clip and you realize that you were lagged out of your mind, and the other player probably wasn't, and so it wasn't their fault, right? Like they weren't cheating, you were just in a bad connection situation. And being able to review that stuff before it becomes an actual report, right, that goes to Activision to review, I think would go a long ways to kind of alleviate these problems, and a lot of the negative issues that crop up. So I think there's value in reporting, because people cheat slip through things, go things go on that people will notice that need to be looked at, but isn't necessarily the way that things are working now, isn't necessarily a great idea. Like, it's not working, I don't think, at scale. So I wanted to look at, again, this clip. So this was sent by a viewer. He asked, he kind of asked what I thought about it. I kind of told him on Twitter, but I did promise I'd do a little video on it. So I want to kind of break down the clip. I'm going to show the segment in question. The issue was, how would this player that we're spectating know that the enemy he fights is there? There was no UAV, there were no obvious pings. So we'll watch that, and then I will talk about what I observed, and then we'll look at the audio from different perspectives and kind of see how depending on who this you know, what the setup this person's running, whether or not this could be done. Now, I listened to this initially on my iPhone, which has miserable speakers. So, you know, the sound was very muddled. That so depending on how you're watching this video, you may not get the same experience that I get. I have, you know, I'm wearing my IEMs. I'm sitting on a computer. You know, this is going through my mixing board, which isn't doing anything but controlling volume. In this case specifically, because uh, because of the way I have it set up. But then we'll look at how audio mixing can change the sounds and bring different sounds out and kind of change the way the play feels. This clip, I don't think it made a huge difference, to be honest. I think it was primarily there's a couple of cues I'll talk about, and then there's a few other things. So real quick, this is just to put everybody on the same page. We're sending this through my standard output. This is not going through any mixing, right? That's this output here. So this is going to go through our standard output, and you'll hear the difference when we switch it over. And then when we look at the different outputs, these segments here are going to be, we're actually going to turn this one off. This is the Art is War setup. I configured it for Art is War for this so that, you know, somebody who copied his settings, you know, presumably would have used his settings, would know, you know, we will get that experience. So it's kind of like a baseline. This is my personal mix that I overlay on top of other settings that I use to balance it for my audio, for my IEMs specifically. And if you are unfamiliar with what I'm talking about, I have a video series on it. Check it out on YouTube. But so let's watch the clip. It's about 10 seconds. And then we're going to talk about it and break it down. Okay. So a couple of things to note. The player comes in, we're in prison in Rebirth Island, and we're going to go into the cafeteria area, and then we're going to go into the cell blocks, and then we're going to fight in on the ground floor here. So what we can hear a couple of times, right? You know, there's early on, you can hear a gunfight. You can hear people moving around, and things bumping around. And so the question of how would he know someone's there? If we watch it again, we're going to listen. There's a gunfight going on to the left, okay? And our teammates, if you look at the mini map, our teammates are on the left side, okay? So they're in a fight somewhere to our left. And then we're going to keep listening to what's going on. Right there. If you listen again, you can hear a thump. And that thump is somebody jumping from one level, landing on another. Not enough to take fall damage. That's a different sound. But they are dropping from a height. Listen again. Boom. Okay? So now we know someone's near us, and we know they're below us because we heard them drop down. Okay? And they sounded close to us. And then pop, smoke, okay? So now we know that somebody is below us, and we know that somebody has just popped smoke, okay? And then this was the part that he thought was extra sus, where turn the corner, and we take some shots, and then we're attacking this guy here. But what I want to point out, and this is where it gets easy to miss if you're not 100% focused on what's going on, and if you are not watching it on something that is, you know, high quality, right? So you might have an older TV. You may not be watching it at 120 frames. You might be at 60 frames. Okay. You might not be focused. You might be focused on something else on the screen, the mini map or something else, and you miss kind of this part. So we're going to look right. See if I can get it to stop where I want it to. It's not going to do it today. Come on. Let's go see if we can move this almost frame by frame. Nope. You're not doing it for me today. So what we'll see before he comes in and takes this shot. Come on, media player, the worst. Right in the middle of that screen. If you look, we're going to watch it again. Right in the middle. Come on. you can sort of see it. You're going to see a black movement blob move from the middle of the screen, from center screen to the left, and that's the player. That's our enemy. So we actually are visually seeing him on the screen. And if I was smart, I would have prepped a screenshot of this, but I didn't. There, you can see the outline as he just disappears. So we knew someone was there because we heard them drop down, and we knew that they're there because we heard the smoke. So when we turn the corner and we see the smoke, and then we see the black object move from the center of the screen to the left, now we know where someone is. We know that they've entered into that. They're in this room because we heard them. We see the smoke, so we know we're in the right room. And then we see the enemy move. So now we know exactly where they are. They've moved to the left side of the screen. Now, it's possible that they are in the smoke. However, I don't think I think that's something that he would have known, that he's not pushing that way because his teammates, if you look, are on the other side of the smoke, right? Or they're in the smoke. They're somewhere on the other side of the room from where we are. So now you have teammates on both sides, and they're not engaged with this individual. So now you know that this individual is somewhere in the middle. So if you know this room and you know this layout, the most obvious place for someone to be is going to be probably tucking up into this corner here. They're going to use the smoke as cover from that teammate in the back, and then they're going to use the wall in this corner as cover from the attacking player, the player we're spectating. And so this pre-fire, right? If you look at the timing and you watch closely, watch the pre-fire. Oh, you saw him, he pre-fired at it, which if that player was an aggressive player, the play would have been to move behind the wall and then immediately reach out and try and put an attack on the player coming in if they saw them. And so that pre-fire, kind of is an anticipation of, I think, them popping right back around the corner and trying to attack me before I'm ready for it. Okay, so very smart play by whoever we're spectating. And then you can see, so the thing that tells me that there's probably no walls and probably no aimbot is as you come around the corner, look where the aiming is. Oh, gosh, this is the worst. Gotta get a better media player. He's targeting towards the pillar, right? He's not tight against the wall. He's looking to see if there's somebody on the smoke and trying to take away this angle. And then as he comes around the corner, he's going to rotate his aim to where the player is hiding, right? And he just starts firing the whole way because you don't want to have to start shooting, right? There. So it's someone who is very attentive to what they're seeing on screen. There's a lot of cues here. I don't think there's any indication of cheats or hacks going on. But it's one of those things of like, depending on your setup and your equipment, you could have easily missed that play, right? Live or spectating. And then that changed the dynamic of watching the film, right? In that if you don't notice the fact that individual was on screen, if you missed or didn't understand the audio cues that you heard before the engagement, right? It can be very easy to misunderstand what's happening and believe that this person knew that somebody was there when they shouldn't have. So if we'll watch it one more time through, and then we'll switch to the audio part. So again, there's fighting. He hears the thump, smoke, saw him, and then because he knew the area, because he knew the room, he knew where to look for the enemy, and was able to get the kill. And so the guy was probably lower health, but he did do some damage. So it was a decent fight. But that guy was just in a bad spot. So that's from a breakdown perspective. That is one of those things that I think is important to look at, right? So I did promise we'd look at it from the point of view of what their audio would look like. So we're going to open up. So this is just the standard settings. We're going to switch it over to our to the Call of Duty mix, right? If you don't understand how this works, you can see my video series where I talk about it. And then I suggest definitely going over to Art is War and watching his walkthroughs on how to set this up and how all this works. So just in case you are curious. So in this, we're running straight, like I said, I reconfigured all this to run the Art is War mix, the current one. So that's what's going on. That's what we're going to listen to. Um, I don't have my personal mix turned on. You can see that it changes the graph a little bit to better suit my IEMs and how they perform. But we're going to listen to it just as anybody who just downloads Art is War and runs with that, how they're going to hear it. And then we can toggle back and forth. We'll probably run this a couple times so we can hear the differences. So this is the Art is War sound of how that segment would go. So, like I said, kind of alluded to at the beginning, I don't think the audio mix makes much of a difference because the sounds that we rely on are to make determination to figure out what's going on. They're very, very obvious. Okay, it's the jumping down, right, and then it's the pop of the smoke grenade, and then it's visually picking up the player on the screen. That's what makes this clip work. But I did want to, I want to make sure that we listen to the two side by side so that we can kind of understand it. So let's go back. We'll listen to it standard. Boom. Okay. Listen to it one more time with Art is War. Okay. So when you listen to it the second time with Art is War, the footsteps are a little bit more obvious, right? They're a little bit more louder in the mix. But the reality is, I don't think they're necessary because you have the visual cue and you have the big thump of the player landing, jumping from one level to another. So, and then the smoke pop, right? Like all three of those things together is all that somebody needs to make this play. And then the way that he approaches the way that he challenges the corner. If he was aimbotting or if he was using walls, he would not have approached the corner and drug it across. He would have been taken a much sharper angle into the corner, knowing that he's on the table. The audio cue of him going up onto the table was definitely not was definitely a late audio cue. So he already would have had visual on him around the time that cue registered. So generally speaking, I mean, I think it's a good play. The username says Biffle. I don't know if that's him or not. I have no idea what his actual tag is, but if that's him, then that's one of the reasons why he's considered one of the best in the world. But if it's just somebody else running that name, I don't see anything wrong with the play at the end of the day. So that's what I got for you today. Hope that helped. Hope you liked it. If you want more of this sort of stuff, let me know in the comments. If you disagree with me, I like the engagement, so let me know as well. And thanks. I will catch you guys on the next one.